Welcome to Your Family's Health, the program that focuses on healthcare issues with unique and different modalities for taking charge of your health today. Experts talk weekly with our continuing roster of guests from around the country and right here in Nassau County to keep you up to date on the latest health issues and trends. Take care of your mind, body, and soul. Spend the next half hour with the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC, and get on the journey to better health.
Hello and welcome to Your Family's Health. My name is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard from the nursing department here at Nassau Community College. And today you're going to meet a very strong Long Island mom who has turned some family medical problems into learning experiences for other parents and other children who may end up suffering with similar issues. Our first guest today is Melanie Tucker, a South Merrick resident who is a mother of two boys, Levi, as well as her slightly younger, Asher. Levi born without any heart issues, but Asher born with a congenital heart disease about 5 years ago. Melanie wrote a children's book called Super Scar about what life is like for little Asher and children like him who have had similar surgeries. Also joining us is her sister-in-law, Dr. Linda Spiro, who is a child psychologist who focuses on childhood anxiety. Melanie and Linda, welcome to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yes, we're so excited to be here today.
So tell us a little bit about yourselves and your family, Melanie.
Sure. So I have two little boys, a 6-year-old Levi and a 5-year-old Asher. I also work for a publishing company, Elsevier, managing medical books.
Good. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Doctor.
So I'm Dr. Linda Spiro. So I also have two kids who are also close with Levi and Asher, Sadie and Austin. I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. So busy with that. But I also am a child clinical psychologist. So I have a private practice where I specialize in children and teens.
So this is a nice family dynamic going on here. So when and how did you find out about Asher's health issues? And can you explain to me a little bit about the disease process?
Sure. So I actually have a different congenital heart defect called bicuspid aortic valve. And I had a slightly higher chance of having a child with a heart defect. So I had a 20-week fetal echo with both of my pregnancies. Levi was born heart healthy, and then we found out Asher had tetralogy of Fallot. So we were still a little surprised. So Asher's heart defect is comprised of actually 4 different heart defects. The first is a narrowed pulmonary valve. The second is a ventricular septal defect, which is a hole between the lower 2 chambers of the heart. The third is an overriding aorta, so it's in the wrong location. And the fourth is right ventricular hypertrophy, so the muscle wall on the right side, on the right ventricle, is enlarged and thickened, and because the heart has to work a little harder.
So how common is this congenital heart defect that you described?
So it's actually a lot more common than most people think. Congenital heart defects occur in 1 in every 100 births. Asher's heart defect, tetralogy of Fallot, occurs in 1 in every 3,000 births.
And tell us about Asher's treatments.
Sure. So Asher has had 3 open heart surgeries so far and about 5 catheterizations. He had his most recent open heart surgery this past September to fix his pulmonary valve and enlarge in his pulmonary arteries. So as of now, he's doing great. He's a happy, healthy 5-year-old. We're hoping he won't need intervention for a very long time. He loves reading, playing soccer, t-ball. You wouldn't even be able to notice he has a heart defect. So he will continue to be monitored. And there's a lot of great interventions coming up that we're hoping, less invasive interventions for his future. But he's really doing great right now.
So tell me, during this disease process with your child, how do you explain this to him?
So his first 2 surgeries, he was an infant. He was 2.5 months and 5 months old, so he didn't really know what was going on. The most recent one was definitely more difficult because he was 4.5, almost 5, and definitely more aware of what was going on. So we relied a lot on my sister-in-law and as well as the child life department at the hospital to give us advice on how do we prepare him for this. They let us know, only tell him about what was happening a few days before beforehand so as not to overwhelm him, and try to describe in very, basic details. He has a special heart. We're going to stay in the hospital. The doctor is going to fix your heart when you wake up. Mommy and Daddy will be there in case anything hurts, because he was very concerned if something would hurt. We let him know that the nurses are all right there to give him medicine to help him feel better.
So, Dr. Spiro, this is a very tough thing for children and the parent. Yes. I can't imagine just with my children having this kind of illness and anticipating this kind of surgery. How would you advise parents to support a child this age and how to support each other?
It's a very difficult time, and I think, I knew it from my professional background, but seeing my sister-in-law and brother-in-law go through it and their kids, that was very difficult for me. So I wanted to help in every way I can. So I think, one of the things I think that's most important is making sure that the parents have the proper support, because kids look to their parents to see, how should I feel about this? How anxious should I be, right? And so you want to make sure, and of course, any parent is going to be so anxious if they're dealing with a kid with a serious medical illness. But really regulating your own anxiety is, I think, the starting point, and making sure that you're modeling, calm for your child, because they're looking to you to see, how anxious should I be? How serious is this? And, at the same time, we also want to, acknowledge for the child that it's okay to feel what they feel and to be scared. But at the same time, doing what Melanie did in thinking about what can be done, what is being done to fix the problem. So we want to also empower kids that, yes, this is scary, and here's what the doctors are going to do, and explaining to them in developmentally appropriate language the facts, right? Because kids do fill in the blanks, right? If you don't tell them the information, they imagine things that might be worse than the reality. And kids pick up on things. They know something's wrong, right? So we have to be able to be honest with them, but also not overwhelm them with information.
So you can, I know for a child this age, you can express your fears to your child. When is the limit in expressing your fears? You have to be honest, because children can pick up on what is not said, and maybe even the feeling that comes prior to the conversation. How transparent can you be with a child?
That's a really good question. I really do think it depends on the age and the developmental maturity of the child. I think for a young child, I wouldn't share as much about exactly your inner thoughts or worries. And you don't want to be dishonest with your child either. So you're not going to say, oh, everything's great right now. You could say, mommy's stressed and here's how I'm coping with it, right? So model coping skills, model that, I'm a little stressed, so here's what I'm going to do to distract myself or relax. But I think really, again, not, going to other sources of support instead of your child, because they're the ones going through it. I think that's probably best for especially younger children to get other sources of support.
That's very so now your husband, right? How did he handle the anxiety and the whole process of your child going through and anticipating surgery compared to you? And what did you guys have to do as a unit to support your child?
So my husband and I have very different personalities. I'm a much more anxious person, and he's more of, let's focus on the facts, get this done, get through this, stay strong, which was very good because we were able to balance each other out. Awesome. He would calm me if my nerves would overwhelm me, and help me stay focused on, we want to get him the best care. This is hard, but we will get through it. They've done this surgery many times. We found the best surgeon we could, and we have confidence in, our surgical team, the hospital we chose. So we need to focus on the facts. Like, he will get through this. This is hard, but we'll be able to do it. So I, leaning on each other to try to get through the hard part.
So tell me, what inspired you to write this book, Super Scar?
Sure. So actually last summer, as we were preparing for Asher's third surgery, like I said, since his other two, he was quite younger and not aware, and now he was very aware and becoming aware of this prominent scar on his chest. We really wanted him to realize he's not alone. There are many, many people, other kids, other patients who have gone through surgeries like this, have a similar scar. And we really wanted to, I really wanted to increase the representation of characters in books with scars like his. It's so important for kids to see themselves in books. So the book is about a little boy, although he may be get tired sometimes, which my son does, and he may not be able to keep up with his friends, which sometimes happens. He can remember and look at his super scar and draw confidence from that, and remember all the hard things he had to go through and draw on that confidence, moving forward. So I really wanted my son and other heart warriors to realize, they're not that different. Yes, they have this scar. There are other kids like them, and this is a visual representation of that.
You're listening to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard, and today you are meeting Melanie Tucker, a South Merrick resident who is a mother of 2 boys, one of which is born with a congenital heart disease about 5 years ago. She is the author of a children's book called Super Scar, about what life is like for little Asher and children like him who have similar surgeries. Also joining us is her sister-in-law, Dr. Linda Spiro, who is a child psychologist who focuses on childhood anxiety. I read in the article in Long Island Herald newspaper, which is now, we learned about your family, as you just so eloquently spoke about your lovely family, that you said the book is about boosting confidence. Explain that.
So my son is 5 now and aware of himself and maybe starting to become aware of differences with other kids. And I really wanted him to be proud of his scar. This is not a bad thing. This represents something that you have gone through that was very hard, was very scary, but you did it. Look at this hard thing you did. And also that there are other kids like this. You're not alone. There are other kids like this with you. So we really want him to grow up to be proud of his scar and proud of what he went through.
Yeah. How important is this, doctor? Is it for young, I would say children, to have a positive body image after this kind of very dramatic surgery?
Right. I think it's so important. I think kids, especially with any kind of illness, they just want to feel normal. They want to feel like their peers. And, while you also want to emphasize what they've been through and like Melanie said, really that they're strong and they're a warrior, they also just want to feel like everyone else at the same time. So I think it's trying to find that balance. And I really think that, as much as you can keep another piece of advice I'd give parents is like keeping things normal for the sick, quote unquote, child and not fragilizing them too much. Like, I think there's a tendency of parents to like overprotect a child who's been through a lot, but I think that might rob the child of an opportunity to grow. So really making sure if the child's medically able that they have the same, expectations as their siblings, that they still have to clean up the dishes after dinner and, that they have as much of a kind of normal life as possible. So I think that's another important part of the process.
And so that is very important. How would you know? I know after surgery is the healing process. How would you know if a child is having anxiety?
That's a really good question. So, I think that there are some signs to look out for, but I want to point out that after any major surgery or getting a medical diagnosis, some level of anxiety is normal. Like that would be strange if we don't feel anxious after something like this. So I think just recognizing that the first few weeks after something, the first few days, weeks, it's normal to be a little more on edge. But we want to look for if something persists beyond that. But some signs that we notice in kids who are anxious are kind of the obvious ones, like kids can have panic attacks. Kids could have more frequent crying episodes. Very common, we might see avoidance behaviors where kids don't want to do certain things that they used to do because they're scared. And the thing is about young kids, they don't always say, Mom, I'm scared. Right. But they just say, I don't want to do that. Yeah. It also could look like oppositional behaviors. Yeah. They can start having tantrums where they didn't have tantrums before. Mood changes. So those are some of the signs that we really look for to understand if a kid's struggling with anxiety.
So is there a congenital heart community that we can go to if we want to talk about possibly other parents who are dealing with similar situations? Is there something that you engage in?
Yes, so there's a wonderful community on social media of different heart groups, either specific disease or general, of heart patients and parents who have gone through exactly what you have gone through. I leaned on them so much during first our diagnosis and then our surgeries, of people across the country, that I haven't met, but know exactly your fears, your concerns, who have been on the other side of this, and they gave my husband and I such hope, for a normal life. And after we get through, this hard thing, we see their heart warriors who have, gone on to do these great things. So it really, I would suggest looking on social media for these communities. There's also great resources through different organizations. There's the Children's Heart Foundation. They fund grants for research to help our kids lead long and healthy lives. There's also Mended Little Hearts. They have different chapters across the U.S., and they offer support and resources to parents and patients, as well as bravery bags for kids who are inpatient.
That's great. So how did Asher's brother deal with this?
So they are only 16 months apart. Wow. So he wasn't, aware when they were little. Their most recent surgery was very difficult because we actually traveled to California for his surgery. And our older son stayed with grandparents and family. So being away from him was definitely difficult. Linda gave us great advice, to try to keep his routine as normal as possible. He was still in school. He stayed at home. The grandparents stayed there. We FaceTimed a lot. And we also made sure to reassure him because he was concerned about his brother.
Yes.
We also explained in simple terms the doctor was going to fix his heart, but he was, nervous. He was scared. He didn't know what was going on, and Mommy and Daddy weren't there. So we tried to, reassure him as much as possible. A lot of attention because, like Linda was saying, we don't want to treat them differently. So, we wanted to make sure, although Asher was getting all of this attention, that Levi also felt included, even though we were across the country.
That's a big deal, right? I would say, doctor, that, when you have a child that gets all of this attention, because they have surgery coming up and they have this heart, so sometimes I guess the other child may be ignored, not in a negative way,
right,
but almost you have to give time to the child that's sick. So how do you balance that? How do parents do that?
Yeah, it's really a challenge because there's real logistical challenges to it, right? Like Mel and Seth had to go across the country and there was no choice. So, I think, as Mel said, I think one thing that I think is important is if you can, or if someone can, giving that other child what we call special time, even 5 to 10 minutes a day of undivided attention where the child is choosing what they want to play with and you're just sort of labeling their play and letting them take the lead. Even 5 to 10 minutes a day is very powerful. So most parents or caregivers can find that amount of time, even in a stressful time. So, and really just making sure that you're checking in with the sibling about regular things, because so much could become about the sibling and how they're doing that we might forget to ask them, how's school going? What's going on with your friends? So making sure that even in your phone calls, you're maintaining some of that normalcy. I think that's very important as well.
Yes, it's important. Just this question is for both of you. Now, there are upcoming appointments that you have to go to the doctor. And I'm sure that maybe Asher may have a little intrepidation about going to the doctor again. How do you allay those fears as a mom? And how would you suggest parents allay some of those fears?
Especially after his most recent surgery, we had a lot of follow-ups with his doctor, and we saw in him a lot of the signs Linda was mentioning about anxiety. He was worried something was going to hurt because his memory of the surgery, he was hurting after, he was in pain, he was uncomfortable. So before we would have the follow-up, he would say, I don't want to go, something might be hurting. So we would try to let him know what to expect. So this is just a checkup. They're going to do, we call it the stickers, an EKG. They're going to take pictures of your heart, the echo. So letting him know what to expect because he knows those things. He knows those aren't hurting things, like he said. So we tried our best to let him know this is what to expect at this doctor's appointment. It is different than what, you had just experienced at the hospital.
Yes, and doctor, how do you think we can help children? Right. If they're going to the doctor again after having had, this kind of surgery, and now they have to go back to the doctor.
No, it's very hard. I think, as Mel was saying, the preparation piece is very important. When kids know what to expect and know what's going to happen, they tend to be less anxious, even though I think sometimes parents think the opposite, right? If I keep it from them and then a shot gets thrown on them, it'll go better, right? But that actually doesn't usually work. I think another thing is just making sure to acknowledge and validate their experience. Like we as parents, even myself, tend tend to want to just problem solve and say it'll be okay. But we can say, like, we know this is very hard and you're going to get through it. I think also giving kids some control over the process in the sense of like helping them pick out what video do they want to watch when they're at the doctor to distract themselves, or what coping skills can they think about doing beforehand. And it also doesn't hurt to give them a reward after for their brave behavior.
You're listening to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard, and today you are meeting Melanie Tucker, a South Merrick resident who is a mother of 2 boys. One was born with a congenital heart disease about 5 years ago. She is the author of the children's picture book called Super Scar, about what life is like for little Asher and children like him who have similar surgeries. Also joining us is her sister-in-law, Dr. Linda Spiro, who is a child psychologist who focuses on childhood anxiety. How can parents and other people get involved with the congenital heart disease community?
Sure. So my advice would definitely be to look up your local chapter of these wonderful organizations like Mended Little Hearts. They do drives to fill their bravery bags. And then also like Children's Heart Foundation, contributing to these walks and helping to contribute to this research. It's really given my family, a purpose now. We want to help Asher and children like him. And by working with these organizations, it's really given us a good sense of purpose. This is something tangible we could do to help kids like Asher.
So what is the activity restrictions? Are there any, or can he engage in all of the activities in school?
Sure. So right after his surgery, he had a restriction for 6 weeks. You couldn't pick him up from under the arms. He couldn't lift his arms up because his sternum was still healing, because during the surgery, they break the sternum. After 6 weeks, he has no restrictions. So we didn't start him in pre-K until end of November. And after that, he was cleared of all restrictions. So you can imagine trying to keep a 4.5-year-old boy sitting, playing calmly, quietly, nicely for 6 weeks was a little bit of a challenge. Even, after surgery, he had a lot of energy. So we tried to find a lot of quiet things to do, like reading, puzzles, drawing, and honestly trying to, near the end, trying to keep him sitting and relaxing was a little difficult, but he was very eager to get to school and play with his friends.
So what are some of the activities that he engages in now?
So Asher has no restrictions. So he is currently on a t-ball team, which he loves. He does soccer, which he likes. He also does hip-hop dance, which he likes. His recital is next month. So he's a very active little boy. He loves reading and video games. But he's, just like any other kid now. So our cardiologist advised, whatever he wants to do, he's allowed to do. And he will self-restrict, if he gets tired.
So it must be nice to have a sister-in-law who is a child psychologist. Talk to me about that relationship.
I honestly was.
Do you know when she gets psychology on you?
Melanie was skeptical of me at first. She said, "Take away that psycho babble."
Right.
Well, as just my personality, I'm an anxious person. So, when we first met, getting to know her, she was so lovely. And I was joking, is she analyzing me? Does she know what's wrong with me? But honestly, it's been so amazing, such a blessing to be able to lean on her with my own anxiety, our anxiety about Asher's health, and just in general being a parent, because she has so many useful tips and tools we can use as parents in our own lives to calm down, refocus, get through things. So I'm honestly so grateful that she...
I am just as lucky to have Melanie as an amazing parent role model, and just seeing the way Seth and Mel, their strength in navigating Asher's health challenges has been nothing short of inspiring. And just seeing her write this book from it has been so rewarding to get to see this journey, and just seeing Asher be happy and healthy now.
So now, were you inspirational with Melanie writing the book at all?
No, I can't take any credit for that. That was all Melanie.
All Melanie.
She did help a lot before his surgery, helping prepare us, how to prepare him, how to calm down, relax. So she was definitely helpful.
Well, I would say that that's a good thing, to have someone that has those kinds of clinical skills that is in the process with you and really are engaging you to really, I would say, do the work. where you and your family can be healthy and happy and whole, right? With all of this that you go through, because it's difficult. It's really difficult. So now with the scar being there, was it you who was changing the bandages and, giving the care? Was it your husband? Who was there that was doing all of that?
So we both were. He also had, they put in chest tubes after the surgery, and he had stitches in for a while with those. So, we both were helping after baths. Especially, it was a little difficult to try to, keep his hands away because it could get itchy as it's healing. So my husband would kind of help me hold him down while I would get him dressed. After his first 2 surgeries, he had a few complications where he ended up needing an NG tube. And when we were released from the hospital, the nurses actually taught me how to insert it because he was released with the NG tube for about 6 weeks. So,
come on over to nursing. Here you go.
So that was like a whole new world opened up. I had to learn.
That's nice. So where is your book, Super Scar? Where is it available?
So it's available on Amazon. I self-published it there.
Okay. And is it intended for all audiences?
It's intended for about 3 to 6 year olds, but I would recommend it also for older kids or families that have either a heart patient or someone in their family or community, just to better understand, what's going on, because a lot of kids aren't aware of kids with these heart defects. My son actually read it to his preschool class, and they said, "Oh, I like your super scar."
Yeah.
So I think it's a great entry to see representation of kids like this with these scars.
So you think there's going to be a sequel? I mean, Asher at teens, it's Super Scar. Makes him a celebrity.
Maybe when he's older, he'll want to write a sequel with me.
That's great. That's great. So tell me one thing that you want to leave with us when it comes down to Super Scar and childhood anxiety. What do you want to tell parents?
Really, I just want to tell heart parents and heart patients, it is a very scary thing to be diagnosed either before birth or after birth, and you just have all these fears for your child. But know that there is so much wonderful research, even in the past 30 years, of procedures and operations for your child, and even less invasive procedures to let them live long and healthy lives. And they can go on to live very, very healthy, long lives. My son started reading at 4 years old. There's celebrities with tetralogy Fallot. Shaun White, the Olympic snowboarder, has tetralogy Fallot. So there's really, it's scary, but you can get through it, and your child will go on to live a long, healthy life.
So, Dr. Linda, what would you leave parents in terms of dealing with a scar and anxiety?
I would say the biggest thing is really just being compassionate with yourself and your family members. Like, here I am giving all this advice, but in the moment, this is one of the most stressful times in a family's lives. So really recognizing that whatever you feel is normal, and you can't be perfect all the time, and really just allowing yourself to feel what you feel throughout the process, and leaning on your support system, I think, is a huge part of it as well.
So how can we get in touch with you, Melanie?
So I do have an email for the book, superscarbook@gmail.com, and happy to answer any questions or concerns from families or heart patients or people interested in self-publishing.
So thank you for being here, Melanie Tucker, author of a children's book called Super Scar, and her sister-in-law, Dr. Linda Spiro, who is a child psychologist who focuses on childhood anxiety. We hope you stay safe and continue to stay healthy. Say hi to Asher for us also, and Levi. And thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you so much.
This is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard from the nursing department here at Nassau Community College, and we want to thank you for listening to this week's edition of Your Family's Health.
We'd like to get your feedback on your family's health. Send your comments by emailing them to whpc@ncc.edu. Podcasts of today's show are available on iTunes, Android Podcasts, and Spreaker. This program was produced at the studios of Nassau Community College in cooperation with the nursing department. Join us next week for another edition of Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.